That's my point is I was looking at her and I was like, she's never going to struggle to pick up a suitcase.
Right?
She's ripping 135 for 10, 12, 15 reps. She's never going to struggle to pick up a case of water. She's never going to struggle to pick up her 35-pound dog while he's wriggling.
Welcome to Muscle Moments. A few years ago, I couldn't wipe my own ass, get in a shower, or walk myself into a store. Multiple surgeries had taken me apart, and what got me back wasn't a diet. It was strength I'd already built. I'm your host, Dana Wildeboer, and I am obsessed with helping people become the strongest, most capable versions of themselves. I've been an athlete my whole life, and I spent decades working my way to the C-suite in corporate. Those two things, coupled with my own health journey, proved to me that strength is the one thing that impacts everything. Your energy, your confidence, your independence, how you age, and how you show up. That's why I coach the way I coach, and the reason I started this podcast. But now that we're into it, I can't wait for you to hear why people who focus on strength and movement as a pillar of their life love it so much, and how it helps them break through their stories and achieve their dreams. It's raw, gritty, and unfiltered. I'm done watching people settle for small when what saves your life is strong. I'm singing it from the rooftops starting now. This is Muscle Moments. Let's get into it. Beyond excited to kick off with a coach-to-coach conversation today. My guest has spent over 2 decades getting people fit and strong, but there's no gimmicks and there's no shortcuts. And all while proving that the work that you do in the gym and under the bar builds a lot more than muscle. We're talking about strength that transforms your body and your mind. Hello, Marshall Roy. How do you make the case to someone who doesn't believe that they can be strong?
Well, being strong is a relative state. That's the thing. And although they are extraordinary and they're inspiring, like I don't think we define strength or we need to understand strength in terms of the people who have perfected it or taken it to its extreme. In other words, I will never be Thor Bjornsson. I will never be Chris Bumstead. But I can still be the strongest version of myself, and I can still be stronger than I was last year or last month. And I hope that a year from now, I'll be stronger than I am now. Not necessarily in absolute terms. So this is a bit of a meandering answer, but what I would focus on with talking to someone about becoming strong would be really emphasizing that it's a relative state. I can make you stronger next month than you are now. And the amount of strength that you need to live your best quality of life is less than people think.
I want to hear your point of view.
And when you think about the average person's daily tasks, daily challenges, the types of unexpected physical challenges they might encounter, the amount of strength you need to handle those really easily and safely is surprisingly little. An example that jumps to mind for me is years ago at my old gym in King of Prussia, had this wonderful lady who trained with us. At the time, she was in her late 50s. Now she's actually probably in her early 70s. And I just remember one day we were mid-workout and she had never lifted before, ever.
Okay.
But after a while at the gym, a year or so, we were mid-workout and she was deadlifting 135 pounds for like multiple sets of like 10 to 15. And for a person in the powerlifting world, that might not turn any heads. That might not be.
I don't know, 50-some-year-old woman touching a barbell turns heads. Let's
So
be real.
that's my point is I was looking at her and I was like, she's never going to struggle to pick up a suitcase.
Right?
She's ripping 135 for 10, 12, 15 reps. She's never going to struggle to pick up a case of water. She's never going to struggle to pick up her 35-pound dog while he's wriggling.
Yeah.
And that, I don't know. I can close my eyes and picture that moment so easily. Like I can see every detail. I was just watching her rip these deadlifts. Like, she was working hard. I can just see her ripping those deadlifts. And I remember that feeling of gratitude on her behalf for the things that she'll face that are just not going to be that challenging for her because she's built up this base of strength.
Yeah.
It's really important for people to be clear and honest about their goals. I love when people are honest about their goals, even if they're, not necessarily what's considered fashionable. Like for a long time in our industry, and you remember this, like the heyday of like the functional training and stuff like that. And it became kind of gauche to have like an aesthetic goal.
Hmm.
And that bothers me a little bit because like, come on, we all care about what we look like. We all
Oh, for sure. Well,
and if you're
yeah.
just honest about it, then we can work on it. And it was super refreshing. Years ago, when I was still at a commercial gym, I was doing an assessment with this young woman, and I was asking her, her goals. The first thing out of her mouth is she pointed to her abs and I want Jessica Biel, and then she pointed to her arms and went, and Madonna. And I was like, I love that. I love the honesty and the clarity about what you want. Everyone cares a little bit.
And
And that doesn't mean
guilty.
we like assign our self-worth to whether or not we measure up to like this celebrity or that magazine. Like, no, no, no. We don't assign our self-worth, but we care about it. And that's the analogy I love to use is like we work out for the same reason we take showers, because it's good for us and makes us look better.
The gym might not make you smell better, but that shower sure will.
They're a little bit opposite in that respect.
Yeah. Well, I want to lean into you were talking about like unrealistic expectations, right? What you can
Mhm.
accomplish in a short time versus a long time. So, how does someone who maybe has never been able to stay committed before actually make fitness a non-negotiable so that it's part of their life for good?
The conventional wisdom would say when you have someone who's starting out, they don't really need a lot to move the needle. And physiologically, that is true. If you're somebody who goes from no working out to like two 45-minute workouts per week, that's extraordinary.
That's yeah.
However, most people, in my experience, can't do that. They can't go from nothing to twice a week consistently,
Mhm.
because that idea of what feels like not very much is actually plenty can sometimes work against you psychologically, right?
Mm.
When you only have two workouts per week, it's very, very easy to play this game with yourself where you're like, well, I don't feel great today, so I'll do it tomorrow when I feel better. Or I'm really busy today, so I'm just going to push this to this next day. And you start getting into this feedback loop where you're telling yourself that it's not actually that important to you because it's
Mm.
something you can shuffle around, right? You would never say like, well, I'm kind of busy, so I'm not going to pick my kid up from school. I'll pick him up tomorrow. Like you just can't. You have to figure out a way to do it.
Hmm.
So, what I like to recommend to people is if you're struggling with consistency or you're trying to put your fitness and your workouts into that non negotiable part of your life, then you should be doing something every day.
Mm.
Every day. To be clear, I don't think you should be doing an hour every day. I don't think you should be doing heavy weights every day. I want you to do something very small and frankly kind of easy,
Hmm.
but with extreme consistency, 5 minutes a day.
Hmm.
I just wrapped up a series I did on Instagram Live where every day for 7 days straight, I went live for 5 minutes and did a micro workout. So it would just be one thing for
Yeah.
5 minutes. And some days I would push myself because I felt good, and other days I would take it real easy because I didn't want to be there. But the point was, it's non-negotiable. It's 5 minutes. And I
Mhm.
got to even experience that, the opposite point of view, because there were plenty of those days where I was like, dude, it's 8 o'clock in the evening. And I already worked out today. Like, I do not want to put on a smiley face and go on Instagram Live and do goblet squats.
Yeah.
But I was like, but it's 5 minutes. Like it's 5 minutes. And a lot of people will push back on that and they'll say 5 minutes isn't enough. I'm like, I know. I know it's not enough. The
But
point
when you're starting from zero,
when you're
5 minutes is massive.
5 minutes is still 5 minutes more than what you were doing. And also, it's not the point. 5 minutes isn't enough. I know that's not the point. The point is create a stack of evidence that you show up every day for your health and fitness. And so then when it's time to do something a little bit more challenging, like say two 30-minute workouts a week, you have that little bit of your identity pre-built that you can fall back on. Like you already think of yourself as a person who gets it done, even
Yep.
when it's annoying, even when you don't want to, like you just get it done. It's 5 minutes, whatever. Going from that to it's only 30 minutes. I got to get it done. It might not feel great. It might not look cool, but I got to get it done. That's way easier to get to. Most
Okay.
people, most people come to me kind of after they've gotten to the point where they're like, okay, I am
Okay.
doing this, I am committed to it, and I want to hire a coach, right?
Got it.
So this is kind of like my advice to, and like this is just free advice to anyone. Like if you know that you've got to get consistent, if you know you've got to make it non-negotiable, then make it non-negotiable, 5 minutes a day. It sounds like circular logic. Like if you're struggling with consistency, then fucking be consistent. But the key to remember is that nothing else matters. Nothing else is getting measured. I don't care about anything else but the consistency. I don't care if you throw down a yoga mat and stretch for 5 minutes.
Just
Uh,
getting out of your head into your body for a
exactly,
dedicated amount of
exactly.
time consistently.
Consistently,
Yeah.
consistently.
And
Um,
hopefully, when someone does move into, we'll just use the two workouts for 30
sure.
minutes a week. When someone moves there, they've habit stacked
Hmm.
without even realizing it. They've started to be like, oh, I feel better. Know why they feel better, but it's that 5 minutes of movement. So, like,
Hmm.
the day they miss and the habit triggers off, they're like, I don't feel good. What's different? They're like, oh,
Right,
it's that 5 minutes. That's when
right,
I started to realize it. And I was
right.
training for some goal, right? Like I had a goal that required me to be strong. So my mindset was like, I'm doing this because I have a goal, not because it was good for me at the time. In fact, it was not self-love that drove me there. That aside, it was at some point I got done some heavy session and I was like, man, I feel so much better than I did when I walked in. And the
Hmm.
statement just kept coming up for me. I don't want to go. I don't need to achieve this goal, but I know I'm going to feel better. And that started trumping the goal.
Yeah, so that's a really good point too. Once you've done a couple days in a row where you've been consistent, even with something like pretty minor, something relatively easy, but you start to really believe you're like, oh, this does make me feel better. This is a
Yeah.
better way to spend 5 minutes in the evening instead of looking at my phone. And I also have noticed a really strong pattern where when people start to consistently do something small, they are far more likely to continue doing other small things. So it's sort of the all or nothing mindset, I think, is something we fight against. We combat a lot because it's in the reverse too, which is like I already worked out for 5 minutes today. Like might as well have a healthy breakfast,
Yeah.
Or I already did 5 minutes of yoga when I got up. Like I might as well take the rest of my lunch hour and take a walk,
Yeah.
you know?
Bleed over effect, right?
Exactly, exactly. Once you have started doing something every day that feels like it's good for you, the threshold of the decision to continue making those choices, like the difficulty threshold, just starts to tick down. It gets
Yeah.
easier and easier. It gets easier to drink water. It gets easier to eat vegetables. It gets easier to go to bed at a reasonable time. This all happens over time, by the way. I'm not making wild promises about like just do a 5 minute workout and all your shit's fixed. No, it
So
happens
how much time does it take,
it
right?
happens
Like that's
over
a
time.
common pushback.
Yeah, everyone's different. I don't have an answer for that. And if I'm being totally honest, I think a lot of that has a little bit less to do with consistency and mindset, and maybe a little bit more to do with some underlying things that are outside my scope of expertise. But
Mhm.
my point being, it's different for everyone, but generally speaking, cool things start to happen remarkably fast when you just say 5 minutes a day, no excuses. It's 5 minutes.
So you're really focused on consistency, helping people be consistent. The client
Mhm.
you most commonly work with is already consistent. So there is a conversation that I've been seeing a lot of right now is that like adaptability wins. And
Mhm.
I actually think adaptability is like silver medalist to consistency slash discipline. Because if you don't have the muscle to be consistent, then it doesn't matter what you adapt for because you're still in that point of being like, oh, well, this hurts, so I just won't do it. Versus when you have consistency, you know what feels better, you have felt the spillover effect. Adaptability is what says you don't feel good, but we know enough of how to back off so you can feel good at the end of this. Where in that chasm do you find you spend a lot of time coaching?
Almost exclusively in adaptability
Okay.
because I don't think I can coach someone to be disciplined.
Mm.
I think I can coach them to be adaptable. And I do. And I want to back up just a little bit and say the people I coach most successfully have gotten to the point where they know that consistency is the most important thing, but they don't have the strategies or the tactics or the accountability to actually make it happen. So that's one of the most valuable things I do as a coach is to be like, what's our plan B? What's plan C? If X, then Y. If this goes south this week, how are we adapting? Okay. This just happened to me last night. A client texted me because she's traveling and she got to the hotel gym and she was like, all they have is dumbbells. And what I've got in her program this week involves bands, there's some chin up work, and there's some barbell work.
I
And I
mean,
was like,
props to her for even pulling it out.
I know. I was super,
That's
super
awesome.
pleased by that. And I said, cool, no worries. Give me a second. I'll throw in some swaps. So I made some, pretty simple swaps. And then I said, like, in terms of loading, like, get as close as you can to what I put on the sheet, but like, don't worry about it because if you wind up a little bit lighter, you'll just do more reps. And if you wind up a little bit heavier, you'll do fewer reps. Like, it's not that
Yeah.
deep. The stakes are not high here. Doing it, getting it done is 99% of the objective. Yeah, adaptability.
Strength is for everybody and everybody, right? Like we all
Yes.
have muscles, we all have brains. Literally,
Uh-huh.
strength is something we can all accrue. It's
hmm
different for everybody, but that means like strength is agnostic. It doesn't see demographics. As we're working across demographics, how do you adapt your framework to that different type of client?
Whew. It all comes back to having a great understanding of what matters to them and what their goal is. When I'm onboarding someone, I try to get really clear on their outcome and their process-based goals. Like folks in our demographic and older, 40s, 50s, and above, they typically have matured out of more superficial goals. And I don't even want to phrase it like that because it's perfectly mature to have a superficial goal, to have an aesthetic-based goal, like we talked about. But they're typically thinking more long term and they're thinking about deeper benefits than just looking great. So they know that they need to have a movement practice that is 2 to 5 times per week, mixture of whatever weights and cardio and mobility. But connecting to what is super important to them and what other parts of their identity are going to be strengthened by the way they take care of their fitness. Is it their status as a parent?
Mm.
I work all parents, but especially moms. I work with this a lot because our culture programs moms to have a lot of guilt around having any priority in their life
Sure,
other than their children.
for sure.
And as much as I want to push back on that, I do also leverage it to say, like, yeah, but you'll be a better mom if you're fit, if you're managing your stress, if you're happy. And this is a big one, if you're modeling for your kids that taking care of themselves is important. And if they become parents, they're allowed to take care of themselves too. And in fact, they should. So I really like to try to deprogram some of that stuff with, again, all the parents I work with, but it's more pronounced with moms just because of our
Yeah,
expectations on
and I
that.
really want to emphasize even when you start taking care of yourself first, you get better at taking care of everyone else, right?
100%
Like put
true. Yes,
your face mask on first.
exactly. So that's the number one thing. But if I can connect the way that training and lifting, getting strong, getting fit will make this person more of whatever other parts of their identity make them feel like themselves and make them feel good, anchors of their self-worth.
Mhm.
That is just so powerful. Is so, so powerful. So to give some concrete examples, I've worked with a handful of teenagers, like teenage athletes in my career, and a lot of times it's like, hey, this is exactly what's gonna let you run faster than everyone else. I've worked with teenage boys who wanted to like put on some muscle, because they were on the smaller side or a little scrawny and maybe felt self-conscious about that. And one of the first things I tell them is like, hey, just so you know, like the next 5 to 10 years of your life, you're going to have about as much testosterone in your body as athletes who take drugs.
Yeah.
Like you're on Mother Nature's steroids right now. And that's sort of a way to frame the opportunity to them in a way that excites them. So anyway, those are just a couple of examples about like kind of figuring out what makes people tick, how people think of themselves, what their identity is, and then connecting that to what we do in the gym.
Share a muscle moment, a time the barbell taught you or one of your clients something bigger than what they can lift.
Ooh, I'm not sure if I can choose just one, but I will tell you about experiences that I have had over and over again, which is that the barbell has taught me that usually the way you feel is irrelevant. And when I say feel, I don't mean physically, I mean like mentally and emotionally. The way
Mm-hmm.
you feel is real. It's real to you, but it's actually not at all a decent predictor of what is going to happen. This has happened to
Ooh,
me as recently as last week, where I was
okay.
dragging myself into the gym, completely convinced I was going to have a garbage session because I was distracted and I was a little bit emotionally burdened on that particular day. And what actually happened is that I fucking crushed it.
Love it.
And it's one of those lessons that I don't know if this is true of everyone, but it's certainly true for me. It's one of those lessons that doesn't always stick. And so it really helps that it becomes a little bit of a pattern where like every little while, like maybe every couple of months, I'm just like, oh yeah, that's right. Like the way I feel actually doesn't matter. I can still go put in a lot of effort and have a super productive session.
One last question for our audience here,
Hmm.
bringing it back to strength. What's your favorite lift and why?
No, you can't make me do that. That's like asking what my
Ooh,
like if
I
like
know it depends on my day too, right? Like
right, like
today,
who
my movement was my favorite today,
that's
right?
like asking a parent who their favorite child is. You can't do that. Um,
Sorry.
I will tell
We
you.
all have one. Let's be real.
Well, and anyone who's been in the game for a long time knows that it absolutely rotates. There are times when
Sure.
like your favorite lift then betrays you, and you're like, "What?" So I will say, after several years of feeling like they were a little bit meh, my squats and deadlifts are feeling good lately.
Hey,
Feeling
nice.
good. Such that like I think I'll probably pull 500 again pretty soon.
Okay.
Yeah, because I can pull 40 pretty much any day of the week, and I
Nice.
just took my second to last heavy deadlift session. I pulled 405 for 8
Nice.
with probably one or two in the tank. So I feel pretty confident that like
Solid.
I can pull 500, which would be a really fun thing to just maintain. So okay, for that reason I'm going to go deadlifts, but they sure do love to take turns being my favorite and my least favorite, don't they?
Yeah, and they work together, right? Like your
Of
squat will
course.
go up if you're doing a sumo deadlift, or
Of course, yeah. And
this may not be applicable to people who are trying to get into strength training. It will be to whomever you're working with or
right,
whatever program you're doing. But
right, right.
yes.
And I was still doing a lot of stiff legs and a lot of bent rows,
Mm.
which two lifts that preserve your deadlift better than any other, I think.
Hamstrings, all about that posterior chain, all the way up.
The isometric erector strength,
Yeah.
the lats, the grip, the upper back strength. So yeah, but man, am I feeling good about deadlifts right now. And of course, now that I've said that publicly, they're gonna completely go to shit, probably.
Mhm.
Along those same lines, the thing that the weights have taught me over and over again, and it kind of speaks again to adaptability as well. I used to have this written on a whiteboard in my gym. I need to put it back up. And it was find a way to win the workout. Find a way to
Mm.
win the workout. Which means that when plan A seems like it's not happening, it forces me to think about, okay, what can I do that's not plan A that is still super productive and moves me toward my goal? So I've had plenty of times in the context of a workout where I get to my top set and I just don't perform the way I wanted to.
Hmm.
And I'm frustrated and I know enough to know that like just grinding against this top weight is probably a bad idea. And so then I'll think, okay, like how can I crush my accessories? How can I murder these back offsets? What can I do that still counts as a win, given
Hmm.
that the thing I thought was going to be the win isn't the win?
Hmm.
And spoiler alert, that is applicable to so many situations where plan A doesn't happen, right?
Right?
It doesn't go the way you wanted it to go. And so you think, okay, how do we pivot so that this still feels like a win? It still feels like a net benefit. Um, it's a great way of thinking, and it is also inherently very empowering because the question is, what can I do? What can
Yeah.
I do given these constraints to get the best outcome?
Awesome. Because
Hmm.
my mission here is to show that strength is sexy. And to me, that comes across in many of the ways we have talked about your
Hmm.
mindset, your physical, your emotional IQ, your ability to communicate. But strength is sexy. What does that mean to you?
I have a dual reaction to that, which is the first and most and strongest reaction is a hell yes, strong agree, both physically and non-physically. Something that you and I have witnessed firsthand that I hope we're not backsliding on is a change in the paradigm of, particularly with women's bodies, is what we're kind of upholding as a quote unquote ideal. And I think that is inherently a little bit problematic. Like, what do you mean ideal? Like, there is no ideal, and also like we're not entitled to opinions about the way other people look. Like, stop that nonsense.
Yeah.
And I'm also very sober and realistic about the culture we live in. Like, this is a thing that we do. This is a thing that happens. And so, within that context, to see the focus shift in the last 30 years from skin and bones, dangerously, unhealthily underweight,
Yeah.
to athletic and strong and um, um, changing the idea of what a quote unquote attractive physique looks like.
Yeah.
always under the umbrella that like it's no one's business and it's whatever you like it doesn't matter. But just kind of again talking very frankly about the culture that we live in.
Yeah.
Knee-jerk reaction to that is like 100% agree. And that's only talking about the physical side of it. Never mind like the mental, emotional, the resilience, the capability, that it builds. Their personalities start to become somewhat emblematic of the work they do in the gym. So their
Hmm.
ability to speak up, their ability to hold boundaries, their ability to prioritize themselves when it's appropriate, with no apologies.
Hmm.
And I think if you are an adult, those traits are very attractive.
Hmm.
And I say attractive meaning both like sexy attractive and
Hey.
and also in the literal sense of this, I am attracted to this person. I want to be in this person's life, or I want this person in my life. This person feels good to be around. I also think of that as like, well, it's not relevant if it's sexy or not because it's valuable,
Ah, ooh, okay.
right?
I'll take that.
And maybe that's me like navel gazing a little bit, but the
We're
idea
here
of
for it.
like the idea of like it's like it doesn't matter because it's valuable and it makes your life better. So
And then you'll feel sexier, right? Because your life is better. It's just like this
yeah,
whole circle, whatever
exactly,
you want to
exactly,
call
and
it. This
exactly,
one habit improves everything else over time.
exactly. Do you know what I think a great analogy for that would be? So as you know, protein is having a moment,
Oh, big
and
moment.
listen, I love it.
As it
It
should.
it's good for you, right? And also now you start to see a bunch of crap like protein pretzels and protein this, that, and the other thing. And like, you look at the label and you're like, okay, like you managed to squeeze a couple grams of protein into a granola bar or into whatever. And you're like, it's like kind of not. It's sort of like the low carb or the low fat kind of fads where you're like you're taking something that in a certain context is very beneficial and making it the new thing that you have to do. Along those lines, like something that I think is on the cusp of having a moment, or at least I hope is going to have a moment, I see a lot of people talking about it, is fiber, right?
Oh, fiber is big
Fiber
right
is
now. Yeah.
crucial.
Eat your
And
veggies first, people. Get that
fruits and
stomach
veggies,
acid
y'all,
going.
fruits and veggies, and instances of like colorectal cancer are up in our generation
Yep.
because I think of a precipitous decline in fiber intake.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, can you think of a less sexy nutrient than fiber? But you know
No, but
what?
plants are sexy when
Do
we
you know what I
talk
mean?
to our
Like
vegan
fiber
counterparts,
is not
right?
sexy. That we associate it with like the joke of like old people and their Metamucil and whatever, but it's like, dude, the health benefits are insane. I've got a great oh God, I love this example. Years ago, I was coaching a guy with MS.
Okay.
And he, at the time, I think he was in his mid to late 40s, and he had been diagnosed within the last couple of years. And he was talking to me. And MS is just like really just there's no good like
Hmm.
illnesses along those
Hmm.
lines, but like man, that one really sucks.
Yeah.
And he was talking about how much research he did and how, there was some evidence to suggest that like there were nutritional strategies that could mitigate the progression of MS. So to be clear, I love modern medicine. I think it's
Love,
one of the
love.
greatest
Yeah.
things that human civilization has ever devised. It's miraculous. I'm not someone who thinks that everything can be cured by like eating a certain way. And it is also obviously true and undeniable that your lifestyle factors have a massive influence on how your body will experience certain ailments or your likelihood of developing certain ailments, etc. So I'm working with this guy with MS, and he was like, "Yeah, I was researching certain nutritional interventions so I can mitigate my decline." And he was like, "So basically, for the last 3 years, he was more or less on like a paleo style diet, like super super low inflammatory. So he was like, the majority of what I eat are fruits and vegetables, and then I also eat meat and fish."
Okay.
Basically, he was like, I eat no processed carbohydrates whatsoever, processed starches. Like, it's basically like animal protein, fruits, and vegetables.
Okay.
And he was like, and my MS symptoms have really plummeted. And he was like, but I also like lost 35 pounds and I'm in the best shape I've been in since I was in college. And I had to buy new clothes because my waist is so trim and I really like the way I look. And also I have a ton of energy and like I'm thinking a lot more clearly. So it's just like, okay, like the MS has improved, and also this laundry list of things from just eating this like highly, highly nutrient dense.
Or was the MS or what was diagnosed as an MS a symptom of a less than ideal lifestyle for that person's body?
I'm not 100% sure. He did still have challenging days where we
Oh,
work out. He'd be like, I'm having a lot of
okay.
trouble. But those days were so few and far between. It was like once every couple of months.
Okay.
And then during the other times, he was
Crushing it.
kicking ass. Yeah. I spoke to another friend recently who was struggling with some digestive issues, like some GI symptoms, and um, there was a potential that he just had like kind of a lot of late onset food allergies, and so there was a potential that he was going to have to basically have a really strict, really limited diet. The one thing I told him was very similar. I was like, it'll be aspects of this will be a huge bummer if you're limited to like fruits, vegetables, eggs, and meat. I was like, but on the other hand, you're gonna get jacked. I was
We'll be
like,
able
so
to
like
see those muscles.
so like if it turns out that you can't really have like bread or pasta or these things ever again, and like I was like, listen, don't get me wrong, there are gonna be times when that's a bummer, but also there could be some pretty great downstream effects of that. And that was me partially trying to like hype him up and cheer him up a little bit, but like that's also true.
Well, and it is. It's so true, right? What question do you want to leave for the next guest?
A common phrase in our industry, I think for good reason, is success leaves clues.
Hmm.
So I would ask your next guest, in whatever your area of expertise is, what are the biggest clues?
That you're about to be successful.
Yeah, or like what are the biggest clues that you can point out to someone who's maybe not an expert in your particular field? In other words, to answer that question for us, for someone who's got their fitness on lock, what are the clues? Um, they treat it like a non-negotiable. They treat it as just as important as going to work or cooking dinner for their kids. It's something that has to get done. Um, and in the exact same vein, it means that sometimes it gets done imperfectly. Another clue to success in what I do is the willingness to um, sacrifice minor comforts in order
Mm.
to get something done. So that might mean, I emphasize minor comforts. Like that might mean skipping Netflix and going to bed. It might mean getting up earlier than you want to because you know that's the only time you have during the day. That might mean eating your favorite foods less frequently. All
Mhm.
right. Not getting rid of them forever, but like less frequently. If your favorite food is ice cream and you have a serious fitness goal, you will probably be eating less ice cream than you want to.
Mhm.
And you are just okay making that sacrifice, that minor sacrifice, in order to have something that is more important to you than that. So like
Yeah.
that would be my example of like these are the clues, right? There's like these like large scale behaviors that probably everyone who has achieved something in this field has in common.
Any questions I didn't ask you that you wish I did?
No, I don't think so. I'm so glad we got to have this conversation. We got to dig in. I love talking to other strength coaches, other coaches in this space. I think everyone has a different perspective and so much value to add. So I feel really enriched by this conversation, and I'm so grateful that you had me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Marshall. I'm so glad you were here as well, and I know we will talk soon. Hey,
I can't
friends.
wait.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Muscle Moments. I hope you enjoyed it. This is just your quick reminder that any advice or information that has been shared on this episode is for entertainment purposes only. This is not medical advice from a healthcare provider. These are conversations with me and my friends about why strength is awesome. If you have questions about what your body is experiencing, make sure you find the coach or practitioner that's right for you. If you want to learn more about Will to Fit coaching, you can find the link in the bio.